Welcome to the BEASTwriter podcast. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and tonight we are going to continue my NFL Mock Draft 1.0, picks 16 through 20. So let's get started. Now, for those who are new to following me, thank you for tuning in. I know I picked up some subscribers over the last 3 days based on looking at my analytics, and I am truly grateful for you guys and showing me love and support. It's kind of hard to get 250,000 of my followers on all different social media outlets to come together on YouTube, but that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to push, and slowly but surely they are coming. All right, and I'm picking up new ones that don't even cover necessarily a specific team, as I cover all 32. So if you really want to know what's going on around the NFL as it pertains to all 32 NFL teams, I'm your guy. I like doing it this way because in order to have a special interest on a specific team, you need to know what your competitors are doing. Kind of like the SWOT analysis that I learned at school. Wow, take that for SWOT analysis. You guys know what that is, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But with that being said, let's get started. All right? So, again, if you're new to following me, I like to break down my mock drafts into 3 parameters. The first one I draft up is my mock draft 1.0, and that draft comes out or released shortly after the Senior Bowl, or in this case near the Senior Bowl. As it gets closer to the Super Bowl, that'll be my mock draft 1.0. My second mock draft 2.0 will be released around the time of free agency, and the reason I do that is because obviously things change from now until then, because we really don't know what's going on as it pertains to free agency. If you're a GM, Steve Keim, and you need a boundary cornerback, and then you pick one up in free agency, well, you're probably not going to roll with one in the first round, depending on who that player is and how much money you allocate him in a front-loaded deal. Make sense? Makes sense. Okay. And then, furthermore, in my final mock draft, it's kind of like going back to school. Rough draft, second draft, final draft, right? I don't know why I'm talking about school and using that as an analogy, but whatever. You guys get the picture, right? My final mock draft's kind of similar to Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, Charles Davis, Bucky Brooks, Daniel Jeremiah. You get the picture. It's my final draft that is released, I don't know, I would say 2 to 3 days before the NFL draft, all right? Obviously, trades need to take place too. We all know that Deshaun Watson wants out, and I know there's buzz about him, about where he's about to go, and we really don't know what we don't know. So until it really happens, it's all rumors, right? Same thing with Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is supposed to be rumored to go to the San Francisco 49ers, and that's what I'm hearing too. So people are asking me, is he going to San Francisco? All sources that I spoke with believe he is. However, Brad Holmes wants to give up a king's ransom for him, and I don't think NFL teams in general, whether it's the Niners, whether it's another team, I don't think they're willing to give up a king's ransom. And a king ransom meaning like the farm. And so until that asking price comes down, no one's going to budge. Just because it's an aging quarterback, yes, he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, but an aging one. And in order to make a power play move like that, if you're GM John Lynch or some other NFL GM, you're going to want to take that into account and be like, okay, well, what do we have to give up to give something? You know, what's the risk reward factor involved in making this deal, in this transaction? And you have to weigh the pros and cons, which I included in the BEASTwriter podcast in the description below and in the comment section. So be sure to watch that if you haven't yet. All right, it's my hottest video to date, and people have good feedback on it. So please watch that. Let me know your concerns or what you liked or didn't like, or what you would do if you're the GM. I think that's a strong starting point, and you can leave those comments in the comment section. That's why there's comments. All right, that's why there's a section for it. Okay. But getting back to the NFL mock draft, let's get started. Now again, I formulate my game plan, as I just said, in 3 mock drafts. I then make the selection based on not what I would do if I was the team's GM. That's my big board, my top 50 players, so you guys can see that, which I'll post later on in the week. But it's based on how I actually see the draft playing out, based on my analytics, all right? More times than not, I'm pretty spot on, all right? Or damn close to it. All right, so let's get going. With the Arizona Cardinals, in the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select, with the 16th pick overall, drum roll, well, let's talk about it. What are the needs? Steve Keim usually goes BPA, right? Remember when he drafted Robert Nkemdiche, right? He has a grading system. Do you guys know what that grading system is for all you Arizona Cardinals fans? JP, I already know you know what it is, because JP, shout out to my man JP. I just want to give a shout out to my man JP. Thank you for tuning in. You watch all my podcasts, one of my biggest loyal supporters. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for you. And you give good feedback, man. You give good comments, good analysis, and I love engaging and talking football with you. JP is an Arizona Cardinals fan, and he keeps it real. That's what I want. I want the real ones. I don't want the biased ones who say, oh, or the homer takes, or saying, oh, you're a hater. No matter what team I'm talking about. And no, I'm not. I'm just being a realist. And it comes true. Like, why would you say this, like a team like the 49ers or the Steelers or whatever team, why would you say they're going to go 16-0 every year when you know damn well that they're possibly, that's like near impossible, It's just near impossible. And it's just funny how fans have this bias toward their team. Like, I get it. Obviously, every fan base has their biases toward certain players and affinity for certain players on the team. Any constructive criticism is taken out, like they got on the defensive about it. But be real about it. Like, even for me, when I was a die-hard Niner fan before covering the NFL as part of the NFL media as a beat writer with the 49ers, one thing I would say is I always kept it real. And it didn't matter what I said or what I didn't say. I always saw things for what it's worth. And I think if you're a fan watching this and you're a die-hard fan of your team, you'll gain more credibility if you just keep it real. You'll gain more respect if you just keep it real, rather than saying and reading what you're saying instead, or reading what other people are saying without formulating your opinion and just going off of that. Like, I think that's not outside the box thinking. I think you're smarter than that. I think everybody has a brain, so use it. Just saying. I'm just saying, like, there's a reason why certain fans have certain followers and other fans have certain followers. And why some people in the media have certain followers and some people in the media have certain followers. Get it? Get it. All right. But getting back to the Cardinals with the first pick, number 16 overall, they have a decision to make. Do they go boundary cornerback? Because we know Dre Kirkpatrick is a free agent. We know Patrick Peterson's a free agent. And I would be quick to argue that Patrick Peterson is not the same cornerback he was coming out of LSU, drafted number 5 overall. I think it was drafted number 5 overall. But you guys get the picture. Patrick Peterson, he was the Jalen Ramsey before Jalen Ramsey. And when you look into that skill set that Patrick Peterson possessed entering the league, who, by the way, the San Francisco 49ers were very high on him as well, and then compare that to today, it just comes with age, man. Like, he lost a step. Yes, he mirrors other teams' wide receiver ones, but he's still not getting it done. And he's giving up a lot of first downs, a lot of 20-plus big plays, a lot of touchdowns. How do I know this? Because I do my grading system. I run my own grading system, and I covered every snap that he played in this year, and he graded out very, very poorly. In fact, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 5 being average, he didn't even grade average. So if you're Steve Keim, and obviously he knows this, and you're looking at it from a financial standpoint, yeah, he may be financially inclined to make a play for him, because obviously he adds value in that locker room. So from a financial standpoint, what is it going to take to keep him in the locker room? Because his production on the field has clearly lost a step. And if he wants more money than what his value on-field production indicates, I would say wipe your hands clean of him. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying Patrick Peterson is a horrible player. I think he's a very serviceable player. I do believe he did lose a step or two. And if he's commanding an asking price that is tier 1 starter money, I would say go in a different direction. As hard as it is for me to say, if I'm Steve Keim, I would go in a different direction. And if you're sitting there at 16, you have to decide, what are you going to do? So for those who don't know how Steve Keim's grading system works, I'm going to break it down for you. This is why you follow me. So he has 2 factors in his grading system. One on character, the other one on on-field performance, right? So what happened when they drafted Robert and Nkemdiche, right? So he defended that pick as in the tail end of the first round because of the fact that Robert and Nkemdiche had top 15 talent, top 10 talent. Some would argue he would even be a top 5 pick. And for me, I thought it was a move that obviously you have to take his red flags of character concerns into play. But then Steve Keim kind of talked about it in his post-draft analysis as to what happened and why he made that play, it made sense. So sitting here, I think Steve Keim always goes BPA, or typically goes BPA, best player available, and he can make a play for a guy like J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn is a South Carolina Gamecock. He's considered the legacy. His dad, Joe Horn, played for the New Orleans Saints during their glory days when they were in the NFC West, and I believe the Atlanta Falcons were in that division. Obviously, the San Francisco 49ers were in that division, but Carolina Panthers. You look at the NFC West during that time, and they had a lot of good players on that New Orleans Saints team. You look at guys like Jake Reed, Deuce McAllister. Of course, you have guys like I just mentioned, Joe Horn putting up big numbers. So the offensive juggernaut before Drew Brees was there in the early 2000s, and I see them that they could make a play for J.C. Horn. However, do I see that happening? I mean, that's something that you're going to have to talk in the war room, right? Because if you look at Steve Keim's resume, he's probably having flashbacks of 2017, where they whiffed on Marlon Humphreys and the Baltimore Ravens capitalized on him. Or you whiffed on Tre'Davious White in 2017 and the Buffalo Bills capitalized on it. That's 2 All-Pros. In a pass-happy NFL, you're going to need a boundary cornerback. However, if you're in that war room and you have a running back need because Kenyon Drake out of Alabama is not going to be re-signed. I mean, let's face it, everyone had high hopes for Kenyon Drake once he was tagged. And he didn't have the year that Cardinals fans or Red Sea fans would have hoped, unfortunately, leading me to believe that they're going to go running back because I believe that's a greater need at this point, and you can find a boundary cornerback later in the draft or possibly in free agency. But right now I see that player being Clemson product Travis Etienne. Now again, if it was me, based on my analytics, it's Travis Etienne. But based on me, if I was the GM, it'd be my Alabama guy, Najee Harris, who's my running back 1. However, I think the fit for what Steve Keim wants and for what Cliff Kingsbury wants in our offense is outside-inside zones and zone read option to where Kyler Murray can play off of with DeAndre Hopkins on the outside. I see a similar skill set that maybe Travis Etienne can add in terms of being a better scheme fit. So although I love Najee Harris and he would be higher drafted on my big board, or higher valued on my big board, I believe that player will be Travis Etienne in the end. Alright? Okay, so let's move on. Now we're going to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders at number 17, right? They had 21 sacks last year. 21 sacks. That's not good. And that's probably one of the fewest, not probably, it is one of the fewest in the NFL in terms of team production from the pass rush area. Now, if you looked at my Twitter receipts, I said drafting Clelin Ferrell, number 4 out of Clemson, was a horrible mistake. But they did it anyways. And I criticized that move to no end. You can go back and check my Twitter receipts on that. But yeah, he hasn't been getting it done. He was the wrong pick. But getting back to what the Las Vegas Raiders need, right? They're going into a new scheme, right? You don't have Jim O'Neill, the defensive backs coach, there anymore. You have a new defensive... Gunther's not there anymore as a DC. You bring in guys like Gus Bradley, who's going to bring the cover 3 scheme to the Las Vegas Raiders, where they have a 3-deep zone, keep everything in front of you, and then maybe have an inverted cover 1 where you have a single high safety playing that eraser role and man underneath. All right, so there's a lot of different things that Gus Bradley's going to do. Obviously, the personnel is going to change, which means the player personnel is going to change. And from a coaching standpoint and a schematic standpoint, where do the Las Vegas Raiders go from here? Do they have enough pieces in place currently on their roster to transition into Gus Bradley's system? I would say no. And they need an edge, right? They need an edge on the defense side of the ball. An edge rusher. Could they go with a guy like Jalen Phillips or Greg Rousseau from the University of Miami? Or do they go with Kwity Paye from the University of Michigan? There's a lot of questions as to which edge rusher they will go in. Because at some point, it has to be an edge rusher, right? I mean, 21 sacks is not going to get it done. They're going to stick with that 4-3 defense. They're not transitioning to a 3-4. So with that being said, I think they need edge help. However, if you have a guy like Jeremiah Owusu-koramoah sitting there at number 17, how can you not select him? he would easily be the best player available. Better than Jalen Phillips, better than Greg Rousseau. He's sitting there as your outside linebacker. You need an outside linebacker. In Gus Bradley's system, he values defensive front seven players. Why not take the smart, heady player out of Notre Dame? It makes the most sense, right? The Las Vegas Raiders, to put that in perspective, the Raiders even signed Vic Beasley as an outside linebacker because they were so depleted at the position. You don't think that they're going to have to do the same in the draft, or not in the draft, excuse me, in free agency if they don't pick anyone in the draft? No, it's going to be a freaking game of musical chairs. So pick Jeremiah Owusu-koramoah. My analytics are pointing that will be the pick. Mike Mayock, John Gruden love big-time school products, and they love kids who are team captains, who basically want players who have a team captain mentality. We saw it with Abrams. We saw it with obviously Clelin Ferrell. And we see it here with, in this case, Jeremiah Owusu-koramoah. So look for him to be the pick at 17. All right? For now, Mock Draft 1.0. All right, now moving on to my Miami Dolphins. What do they do at number 18? Well, if you watched my Twitter receipts and if you watched my earlier podcast episodes, I said that this one is obvious. You take Devonta Smith at 3. Granted, they don't freaking trade for Deshaun Watson, obviously. And if you're sitting there at 18, why don't you just stay with the Alabama Roll Tide player and go Najee Harris? You need a running back. If you look at their needs, the Miami Dolphins have the least amount of holes of any team in the NFL, in my opinion, based on my analytics. And if you do the math, and if you run the numbers, and then you run the long-term contracts, and then see the value of the players in the 5-year vision, there's not too many holes that Chris Grier needs to solidify his team moving forward. Brian Flores has his team going in the right direction. And I'd be hard-pressed for you to find another team that has not as many holes as the Miami Dolphins. You look at running back, wide receiver, center, and both linebacker spots. That's it. That's 5 positions. 5 positional needs right there. So by default, they get draft flexibility because they can go BPA based on their big board. If we look at the vertical board and then based on the horizontal board, I think the Miami Dolphins can just stick to the big board and take the best player available. Well, luckily for them, they have good draft position because based on NFL mock drafts and my mock draft, they can fulfill certain needs. Wide receiver Devonta Smith at number 3, staying on the offense side of the ball, giving Tua Tagovailoa another weapon from the Roll Tide rule, and take Najee Harris, a running back. Just think about that. If they don't trade Tua Tagovailoa and get Deshaun Watson in return and decide to keep the picks, you have Tua, you have Najee Harris, you have Devonta Smith, all Alabama kids. That type of rapport can't be duplicated, and that's good for a young quarterback moving forward because he already built rapport with these players over the course of his college career. Furthermore, you already have tight end Mike Gesicki, so you're set there. And then you have Devontae Parker, first-round pick back in 2015, I believe. So you're pretty much set. Offensive line, pretty much set. Not too many holes. That'd be a deadly offensive juggernaut to see. But anyways, that's my pick. Moving on, Najee Harris at number 18. All right? And I'm just going to point this out, man. I was watching NFL Network, and I was watching the Super Bowl teams of the early 90s, and gosh, if they get Devonta Smith teaming up with Tua and Najee Harris, those 3 guys, that trio, that reminds me of the early Dallas Cowboys years of the early 90s when they had Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin. Just saying. And look what happened to them. The dynasty. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about, but hey, it could happen. All right, moving on to Washington with the first-round pick, number 19 overall. This could be a hot spot where the run-on offensive tackles take place. You have guys like Samuel Cosmi coming out of Texas. You have guys like Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State. So you can really get some of these younger guys and plug and play them at offensive tackle. However, with that being said, with GM Martin Mayhew coming over from the San Francisco 49ers to be the team's new GM, I believe he's going to pull the plug and pull the trigger on his quarterback of the future. And with that being said, that guy's going to be Trey Lance. Trey Lance, new head coach, obviously with Ron Rivera coming back. He's not going anywhere, but he's fairly new, right? He was acting GM. And then you have a new GM, Martin Mayhew, working together. How can you not go Trey Lance? They just got rid of Dwayne Haskins. They need a quarterback. Alex Smith, I love the guy, but he's not the long-term answer. He would be a great mentor, and I could see him even possibly being a coach later on after his playing days, but he would be a great mentor for whoever that young quarterback of the future is. Trey Lance can use all that help because he didn't play against FBS competition, kind of like Carson Wentz, and I believe that Trey Lance would be the pick at number 19. All right? So look for him to go to Washington at number 19. Now, the Chicago Bears. In the first round, with the 20th overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select... Who do they select? Well, let's just break it down. GM Ryan Pace obviously needs offensive line help. Like, there's no question the offensive line of the Chicago Bears is on par to be the crappiest on the team. It's horrible. It's not good. Comparable to the New York Jets right now, even with Mekhi Becton. It's just bad. Bad all the way around. But GM Ryan Pace is not the smartest tool in the shed. Like, we've seen no offense, but we've seen the picks that he's made. Trading with the Mitchell Trubisky 49ers trade. Wow, that was funny. And then we all know what happened there. And then you see it with some of these other picks with Leonard Floyd and so forth, who's now with the Rams and so forth. But look at the team moving forward, right? You look at guys like the teams that, how do I explain this? Basically, this is a Ryan Pace thing to do, right? So obviously he's not going to go offensive line because I don't think he's going to go that route based on my analytics. I think he's going to roll at wide receiver because we don't know what's going to happen with Allen Robinson. He's been in a contract dispute in the past 2 years now, and he wants a long-term deal. However, Ryan Pace has yet to give in. And with that being said, who knows what happens in that unit? And when you have a guy like Darnell Mooney who shined this year, I really like Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is a guy to me that brings a skill set. He has 4.3 speed. Let me just run down the numbers. Showed flashes of him being a wide receiver too, but he had 61 catches for 631 yards, I believe, and 4 touchdowns. So you put that production all into account, and with Allen Robinson's future in doubt, how can you not go wide receiver if you have a guy like Tony sitting there? Who's Tony? People are saying, who's Tony? Well, if you watch my podcast regarding the Senior Bowl, you would know that Kadarius Toney out of Florida, an SEC product, would be a hot commodity. He's a gadget player similar to like Tyreek Hill, I would say, and he would be a nice addition to the Chicago Bears, teaming up with Darnell Mooney to give him 2 wide receivers for the foreseeable future. Well, that's it for today. Or tonight. I hope you liked what I had to say. Those are my picks 16 through 20, and of course things are going to change. Please hit the subscribe button in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Also, if you're watching this and you've liked what I had to offer, there's also a subscribe button. I believe it's on, well, for you it would be on this side, I think, or this side, I don't know. Either side there is a subscribe button. During any podcast, be sure to hit that and subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell notification so you get notified when I go live, like now. And that way you can stay up to date. All right? I'll be releasing my 2021 NFL mock draft picks 21 to 25 tomorrow. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for tuning in. I'm about to watch the Senior Bowl right now and finish up my game grades on that for the 4th time, because I watched the game 4 times now. This will be the 4th time, and I'm pretty much tired. So that's pretty much it. All right, thank you for tuning in. Have a good night. BEASTwriter out.